scientists and physicians can publish their work and make it available to a broader public, whether professional or lay people. I would like very much to get the word out on what I think is neglected medicine.
Do you feel that, well, let me ask you this, how's it going with the journal? Are people finding out about it? Is it, I mean...
Right, well, it can always be better. Right now, I think that there are about 500 subscriptions, which is considered good for a journal at this stage in its history, but we'd like to raise that a few orders of magnitude, as it were. A big thing will be at the end of this year, 2002. We're going to be submitting the journal for consideration by the National Library of Medicine. They're the people that run the databases, like the PubMed website, which is a fabulous resource. PubMed, basically you put in search words and it gives you all the articles the last 30 years on that subject. If we get this recognition, it then legitimizes our mission in a big way, because it makes it a better place for scientists to publish their work. It also makes it more accessible to the public. As it is now, we've got a big word of mouth. I appreciate the opportunity to...
Well, everything has to start, you know, but, you know, having the concept right, and, you know, when you're building a pyramid, having the corners in the right spot.
Well, we'd like to have a bigger online presence. We're planning a website now. Currently, we have links available at www.Haworth Press Inc., all one word, Haworth Press, PRESSINC.com. And
so anybody right now can go to haworthpress.com.
Inc.com, right.
Okay, and find out information.
We've also got a site, we have a relationship with an organization called the International Association for Cannabis as Medicine. They have an excellent website in 4 languages. If people go to the English site, which is at www.acmed.org, there are links to the Journal of Cannabis Therapeutics with a lot of online content. We have the entire Volume 1, Issue 1 online there. Also, we have the entire content in a PDF file of the chronic use study that I presented here at the Normal Conference yesterday. So people could get a taste of what the journal is about, and maybe they'd see fit to subscribe.
What are could you give us an example of a typical, you don't have a copy with you?
I'm afraid I don't. We were supposed to get a bunch sent and they just didn't arrive.
But what would the typical person be able to find out reading the journal? I mean, does it deal with practical medical conditions?
Well, to an extent. We've got some highly technical articles, but by the same token, we've got ones, for instance, a very accessible article we've got coming out in a couple of weeks, looks at the history of hemp as medicine in England. And it was written by a woman with a Ph.D. in English literature. But she's done a beautiful job looking at the old English herbals and presenting this history. And I think, I think that'd be accessible to most folks that have an interest in the subject, even if they don't have a technical background.
History. I mean, history is is an aspect all into itself.
You bet.
And how about practice? I mean, do you have it categorized? I mean, by an index where somebody could just hit treatment of PMS or treatment of depression?
Well, not specifically. I mean, that's the kind of thing we would have eventually. We are right now in the final stages of a double issue for 2002 called Women in Cannabis, Medicine, Science, and Sociology. That'll come out as a double issue of the journal, also as a separate book that will be indexed that way. And in that instance, if somebody looked up menstrual cramps, because they were interested in what the history was of cannabis used to treat that, they'd find places in my article to find it.
I know it's hard to speak in numbers that are meaningful, but and also to me it's just, as an anesthesiologist and psychiatrist, I think it's just so fitting to have a neurologist involved in the cannabis education movement, if you will, because there's such a obvious correlation to neurological conditions. Would you just speak for a minute on that?
Sure. Well, I'd like to think that neurology is one of the main areas of interest with cannabis therapeutics, because a lot of what's involved in neurology has to do with chronic pain states or degenerative diseases such as multiple sclerosis, and these are some of the prime indications for cannabis. Additionally, neurology gets complicated, biochemistry of the brain, but this is the kind of field where we have to deal with these issues of how a drug like cannabis works. Basically, it's simple on one level that we have receptors in our brains that are primed to respond to natural cannabinoids called endocannabinoids, such as anandamide. In other words, our brain recognizes this activity. Cannabis resembles these endogenous cannabinoids, and that's how it works on its most basic level.
In other words, the human brain evolved in such a way as that it was made, so to speak, to respond to these substances.
That's exactly right. So this is no accident. God put this plant on earth for a purpose, and to me it is ultimate in irony that people would see this as a moral issue. This is about medicine. This is about people suffering and seeking relief, and certainly this plant provides a medicine that is the answer for a lot of clinical problems.
Mm-hmm. One thing that's striking to me, I don't want to get off the subject here, but over the years I've noticed that neurologists as a profession, and I don't mean to be pigeonholing you guys, but frequently there's a tendency for neurologists to view their role as being 99% diagnostic. In other words, for the people in the audience, what I'm saying is that 99% is getting an accurate diagnosis on very complex biochemical conditions, and about 1% of neurology is involved in treatment. Right. I mean, I'm exaggerating. And for that reason, neurologists are usually kind of depressed and stressed out, and kind of live a sterile kind of stereotype. Well, on the other hand, you're smiling and laughing.
You've described the archetype of the neurologist. We'd like to change that. We'd like it to be a specialty where we can say, hey, we can treat your disease too. And to me, cannabis is clearly one of the prime medications that's going to bring neurology from its current state, which is a diagnostic art, to the point where it is a therapeutic art too. In other words, not only can we tell you what you've got, but we can provide the medicine to treat it.
That's unprecedented. But I know we can't go into in this little amount of time go into many conditions. But would you say just a few? Speaking of neurology,
sure.
A few more. Like I've heard, multiple sclerosis.
Right.
Has your studies
sure.
experience showed
right.
it helpful? And
there are many others. Chronic pain states like neuropathy. That's diseases of the nerves that produce burning pain, such as commonly occur in diabetics. Any condition that produces spasm, such as spinal cord injuries. Then common problems like migraine headaches. I This has been my